Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Indriana Putri Marianingrum and I'd like to explain my material about sentence processing. The first is definition of sentence processing. Sentence processing takes place whenever a reader or listener process a language utterance, either in isolation or in the context of a conversation or a text. Many studies of human language comprehension co-process have focused on reading of single utterance or sentence without context. And there are strategies for sentence processing. The first strategy is two-stage model of parsing. That is, assumes that the parser began to build a syntactic structure as soon as the lexical processor began to deliver information about word categories. The thematic processor also appears to work on a word-by-word basis. That is, semantic interpretation does not wait until the end of a phrase or a clause. Listener monitor to the meaning of utterance constantly as they are processing those utterance. And the process of interpretation will slow down or stop as soon as listener detect either syntactic or semantic problem with the input. The next is constraint-based model of parsing. Constraint-based parser represent different aspects of sentence, including their syntactic structure as pattern of activation spread across large number of interconnected processing units. This group of processing unit and the connection among them are intended to resemble the functioning of a network of neurons in the brain. Different between the garden path and constraint-based parser is that the garden path parser relies solely on word categories information for its input. But constraint-based parser can draw on a much wider variety of codes to decide what structure to build and the relative emphasis to place on each alternative structure. Okay, the next is argument structure hypothesis. The argument structure hypothesis would claim, therefore, that only two structural possibilities would be stored in long-term memory and associated with was reading. So when comprehender access the verb from was reading, they would activate the two associate syntactic structure, one that did not have a place for a post-verbal object and one that did. The argument structure hypothesis provides a somewhat more nuanced view of how argument how influence parsing. According to the argument structure hypothesis, argument frames and their corresponding syntactic structure are important because they determine how some elements of sentence are interpreted. Okay, next is limitation, criticism, and some alternative parsing theories. More recent theoretical development in sentence processing have attempted to move beyond the older two-stage and constraints-based processing accounts. While retaining the best feature of each approach, the first criticism is based on the suggestion that the parser may not always favor likely structure over less likely, but simpler structure. And the second criticism of this constraints-based approach relates to the absence of evidence that sentences with simpler syntactic structure are ever hard to process. Okay. The next is parsing long-distance dependencies. We have been considering the processing or sentence where the word that go together to make phrases appears right next to one another as the sentence are product, but not all linguistic and psycholinguistic agree that gaps and trace are involved in the parsing of long-distance dependencies. Okay, maybe that's all from me. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.